Hello and welcome to another episode of Anime Lounge Short Flights. I'm your host Lance, here to talk about Undead Unluck episode 22. If you follow me to this point, you know that I read the manga along with every episode so I can compare and contrast things. And there's actually a handful of differences between the two mediums this week. They're all small, but they're enough for me to share some information. Before we get into that, this was a great episode. A lot of information coming out of this. Despite this being like just kind of like a background kind of thing, we got to learn a lot and we got to learn some really important stuff too at the end. And I can explain why it's important at the end of this episode. So, this episode, as far as the manga is concerned, takes place between chapters 43 and 46. Now, usually one of these episodes typically covers about 2 chapters worth of information, but these chapters were a little bit shorter. So, they were a very fast read, and that's why they covered 43, 4, 5, and 6, 4 chapters worth of information. Not a big deal. They were quick, still felt the same as reading any other episode. So, right off the bat, this episode starts differently than the manga does. The beginning of the the beginning of the anime, actually, this shows a little bit of a backstory. None of that happens in the manga, but on the other hand, the manga starts off differently because it's showing like an outside perspective outside the book, back where the writer Ano is, and Rip slash Unrepair is also in the room with her, and she's threatening Rip to not touch the book or interfere with anything, or she'll have to kill him. So it's kind of like foreshadowing what's going to happen next after they get out of the book. That's the quick difference right off the bat. So I'll get into a couple more things as we just explained in the episode a little bit. It was really cool learning a little bit more about Victor, because Victor is such a badass and he's the original Andy, and he's got so much information about him that we don't know about. There was one point in time where he said that he's been working like this for tens of thousands of years, because he started by saying hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of years. So this dude's crazy old, and that just makes him all that much more interesting. I suppose there was another quick difference when we get there. When they first run into each other and Victor's threatening Fuko by killing her all the way until the end of the book, basically, going to kill her through every single chapter. As he's kind of doing this, we get to see small snapshots of Fuko going chapter by chapter, and she shows up in a desert, that same desert that she showed up to in the very beginning of Andy's book, where she ran into Andy and like those 3 other friends. And we get to see her again showing up in some kind of park. It seemed like a picnic kind of scene thing going on. And then each one of those scenes, Victor's killing her and just forcing her into the next chapter of Andy's life. In the anime, they just fast forward through all that. We got to see a bunch of bullet shots, and that was just to signify that she's going from the past up to basically the present. Now, what you might have skipped out on, or at least not caught right away, is skipping every single one of those gunshots was skipping a chapter, and those chapters meant a lot because something happened in 1800s to Andy, and Victor forced her to skip all of that. So we're basically at present. We're back at 2022. I think they said it was August. So a couple hundred years, she died like 200 times almost. And there's a bit of information that she missed out on. And that's why at the end of the episode, Victor said, if you want to learn about that date, go ask Jews yourself. So that's why he said that to begin with. So in case you missed that part, that's what that means. After this point, we got a nice little battle between Andy and Victor. A little confusing on how his anime logic can really work on going into Andy's mind and getting the same character with 2 different mindsets to battle each other in real life. I don't know. I mean, I know it's anime logic. I know it's inside a book. Different things can happen, but it was just kind of weird that the same body can exist in 2 separate times with 2 separate personalities. It was just interesting enough. But anyway, cool action. Andy introduces a new type of attack. He twists his fist and then shoots it out, and he calls out a vortex bullet, and that was powerful enough to break through Victor's defenses a little bit, blow up his body. That was pretty cool. It reminded me of some One Piece action going on there. Victor also pulls out a new move. Besides his, they both have the blood swords things going on. Those are cool. But he cracks his knuckles like completely, opening his fingers, and then just like sprays out like a machine gun of blood bullets. So that was pretty cool. And then, of course, we got to talk about the last one, like the classic Kamehameha versus Gallic Gun Blast. They're just fighting each other off with just giant blasts of blood coming out of their arms. And that move they called Dead Road. So that was pretty interesting. A lot of dead stuff going on in all of these attacks that, fits the theme of these guys. All cool. Liked it a lot. And then we got to learn that the way Victor got defeated was infusing Fuko's curse into Andy's parts bullets. He learned that he can imbue his soul into any part of his body, and then that's where the curse is gonna just go. I don't know. So anime logic made sense. That's cool. Totally fun. And it really plays a big role because that's why this whole scene is super important. The purpose of going into this book was for both Andy and Fuko to learn from each other and to grow. Maybe not so much for Andy to grow, but for Fuko to learn from Andy and to grow even better. So at this moment, Fuko's learning that she needs to control her unluck to a stronger degree. And that's coming in the form of evolving it into personalizing each attack to the enemy. And this became apparent when usually her attacks cause physical damage, but the final attack that got Victor was the capsule. And that's the way to defeat him, is to capture him because he can't be killed. So keep him from regrowing his body. I don't know. So the personalization of the unlock is the next step in Fuko's powers to take down God. So that's why this was important. Two more small differences in the manga. Right after the dick punching scene, which was super funny, I like that one a lot, when Fuko punched Victor because he was naked when he showed up, and then he randomly gets clothes back on out of nowhere. The anime kind of just skips over that, but the manga has another couple panels to explain it. And Victor says that we're inside the story and you can make anything happen with imagination. So that's why he was able to make clothes come back, because Fuko also made a comment about Clothy, the other guy that can make Andy's clothes, and they were both confused by Clothy. So because that's outside the book stuff, that's whatever. So I imagine they could have gone even deeper into playing with the imagination idea too. So maybe that explains why Victor and Andy were able to fight each other to begin with. It's all imagination. And then the next one was shortly after. The next difference was when Fuko and Victor are talking, and then Victor's like, "You're just like Juiz," and Fuko's like, "Oh, me? How? That's not possible." And then Victor goes, "Well, you have no class, you have no sex appeal, you're stumpy, and you have a raccoon dog face." And I thought that was kind of funny. And I'm very surprised they left that part out, because that seems very on par with how the comedy of the show kind of goes. They didn't say any of that. They just went straight to how they just have the same drive to like help humanity. So that was cool. They kept that part in, but the making fun of Fuko part was left out, and that was unfortunate. So yeah, then we end up this episode with the book coming to an end and everybody about to come out. And that's exactly where the chapter stops. And I read a little bit ahead. And now if you guys want a spoiler, I'll spoil it right now. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, Unrepair/Rip is sitting outside waiting for them. He's still there. The next chapter isn't like any kind of battling with that, but it's going into Ano, the writer, the girl with the missing arm at this point. We're going into her past, and there's a very interesting thing about her past and how she's like invisible and she wants to write to impress her mom. So we get to learn a little bit more about her in the next chapter or in the next episode. So that's something we can look forward to. And like I said, Rip's going to be there, and I'm sure he's going to try to cause some mayhem or something because he's the bad guy. So we'll see. Anyway, love this episode. I think there's like 2 episodes left. Can't wait to see what happens next. And I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you guys next week.